conference budget will not include VLTs or the rural tourism districts. We think this is the best, most prudent way for us to move forward. With that, I'll turn it over to Speaker Moore.
Well, good evening. Appreciate you all getting with us on short notice. You know, a lot of the conversation has been about where the differences of opinion are, and so I think it's appropriate that we're now able to transition and talk about on what a great budget this is, what it's going to do for North Carolinians from one end of the state to the other. The absolutely record investment in rural infrastructure, water, sewer, education, doing so much to get resources to parts of our state that are having a hard time right now. Tax relief to working families, more money for education, pay raises for our hardworking state employees and teachers, really ensuring that we have probably one of the greatest budgets that I've ever seen. Really wise appropriations that is a big part of why North Carolina is doing so well, and a big part of why, in terms of the policies that have been implemented by this General Assembly, that North Carolina continues to be the #1 state in the country for business. This is a process that we go through. We've had very frank, candid conversations, work through and try to get consensus and buy-in from all ends of the spectrum here, and I think you're going to see a very good budget that I can tell you that we are very proud of. And so very pleased to have you here. Very pleased that we're going to be moving forward and having a budget done here in the next few days. With that, we'd like to take questions.
Does that mean no casinos at all, no VLTs at all, or just not in the budget?
Not in the budget. I do not see us voting on those at any point in the coming weeks.
So does this mean?
What got you to this place of being willing to take casinos out of the budget?
I think in looking at what had transpired as far as the rural tourism districts are concerned, it was just pretty clear that the facts were almost beside the point as to what those proposals would do for rural areas, and the emotion that was actually permeating every bit of discussion about that had sort of overtaken. I've learned that in an environment like that, you're unlikely to make any progress, and so it was my belief that it was time for us to just move forward. I would say that I just have some real concerns about folks who have on other occasions been very supportive of gaming, whether it's gaming for sports betting, whether it's the lottery, whether it's VLTs. The governor had VLTs in his budget proposal. And I don't know why those same folks have a real problem with us moving forward with some sort of gaming that would actually create jobs, particularly in rural areas. There's a whole lot of talk about we need to help rural North Carolina. But when we have a proposal that actually would create over 5,000 jobs, good paying jobs in rural North Carolina, increase tax base in rural North Carolina, these same folks come out adamantly opposed to it. And I think people ought to ask the question as to why certain gaming is okay, but casino gaming is something that is just totally off limits. And again, it's my belief that the emotion got the better of the discussion, and it was just time for us to get the other things taken care of. Like the speaker said, this budget has thousands of great things for the people of North Carolina. It has raises for our state employees, has additional compensation for our teachers, has a bonus for our retirees. It also has needed funding for water and sewer projects and other projects all across the state of North Carolina. So it was time for us to get this taken care of.
What was the timeline in this to catch us up? We just walked in here.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Well, actually, the real news is that we started early.
That is the news.
That is the real news. But the timeline is the conference report will be ready for release tomorrow. We will vote. The Senate plans to vote Thursday at 2 o'clock for second reading, and Friday at 9:30 in the morning. I believe the House schedule is similar to that.
It is. That's correct.
Do you think at this point some of the concerns that lawmakers might have had about the gaming proposal, or if there were any misunderstandings about it, that could have been avoided if this went through a normal bill process, introduced as a standalone bill, went through committees, a little more transparency, a little more sort of public, ability for the public and for lawmakers to sort of weigh in? Would that have been avoided?
So I don't know that would have avoided it. I mean, if you look at the sports betting bill and how it took multiple sessions to try to move that forward, I do think that the important thing was and is to have public discussion. And for people to have an opportunity to know that it's something that's being considered. To the extent that that was not done, I think that could have prevented the bill from being successful, or the provision from being successful. I'm not sure that the legislative process itself would have improved the outcome.
Senator Berger, you, now I lost it. I'm sorry. Oh, do you see this as a short session issue potentially?
I continue to be supportive of the idea of improving jobs and job opportunities in rural areas. I think the proposal is one that definitely will do that. I will continue to be supportive and will continue to be working towards trying to get that enacted in law in North Carolina. Because the reality is that money that is being spent in Virginia is still largely coming from North Carolina and will continue to do so.
So, just really quickly, if the gaming proposal, if this bill, House Bill 149, isn't moving forward right now, where does that leave all of the action that's occurred this summer with respect to casino developers coming into the state, purchasing land, requesting rezoning decisions from county commissioners? What happened? Where does that go? Where does this leave all of that sort of companies operating under the belief that casinos could be authorized by?
So I don't know that anybody had any kind of guarantee that something was going to make it across the finish line. It was always subject to whether or not the legislature would take the step, and there's always the risk that things don't get passed.
Is all the Medicaid stuff that was in 149 and the ARPA, all that will be rolled into the budget?
It's all in the budget.
Final question.
What time do you expect?
You've had 2 minutes.
I assume the gambling just didn't have to support your caucus. Is that the bottom line here?
You know, not going to get into the conversations of within caucus, but clearly there were differences of opinion, and at the end of the day, we felt like this issue and no one single issue should hold up the budget. So collectively, it was determined to go ahead and move forward with the budget, because there are just so many things that this is a process in terms of the budget that where there are differences of opinion within the chambers, between the chambers, among the parties and so forth, and so many things have been resolved in terms of funding priorities and revenue package, and so much time has been put into this budget, both on the Senate side and on the House side, and I think that what you've seen is the deliberative process working. It sometimes is a tough process, but it shows that democracy works. That the elected leaders in the legislative process go through and things get worked out, and we're going to have a budget. And again, I think that's why I kind of want to bring it back from all these side issues to where we are in a budget, where we are balanced. You look at where the federal government is. They're upside down. They're taxing too much. They're in a hole. We're mortgaging our kids' future to China. And you compare that to North Carolina, where we have a budget that's balanced, where we come in above expectations even when we cut taxes, and we continue year after year by making wise and sound fiscal policies to have a state that is well run and is attracting folks to move here, business to locate here, and jobs to continue to grow. That is not the same in every other state. And so you work through this process, and I hope what each of you will report in this process is to talk about the positive things that North Carolinians are going to have from this. The fact they're going to pay less taxes. They're going to see their hard-earned dollars go into projects that matter, less waste, priorities being met, again, money into education, all these things. And so I'm very proud of where we are, and so I hope as fellow North Carolinians, as we move forward, you will join us in telling the positive story of North Carolina, and that this budget is a big and key part of that.
So to piggyback onto that ARPA money Medicaid question from 149, can we assume that the allocations from the ARPA that was in 149 are pretty much going to be the same in the budget?
Pretty much going to be the same, maybe identical. Again, as I said before, I haven't read through the document that y'all have been looking at, but I suspect it's the same thing.
All right.
But obviously, we'll know for sure tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
Speaker Moore, are you anticipating the Republican votes in the House against the budget because it includes Medicaid?
I don't anticipate any negative Republican votes. And I anticipate some significant Democratic votes.
How about you, Senator Berger, on that same question, whether you think you'll get some
I'm confident
Democratic
we'll have
support?
all Republicans voting for it, and I suspect there'll be some Democrats that will vote with us as well. But ultimately, we'll see when we put it on the floor.
Okay.
Have you spoken to the governor about this since the deal was?
Not about this. Last conversation I had with the governor was earlier today, but have not talked with him about the fact that we've agreed to move in this direction. Okay.
Triad Business Journal is reporting the Summerfield de-annexation is going to move forward. Is that true or?
That bill is not really in a deep freeze, but it's so chilly it's not moving.
Does it still
We
need
don't intend to vote it this week. It'll be on the calendar. The idea is, it looks like folks in Summerfield doing the right thing, and as long as that continues, we'll not move that part. There's some other things in that bill that we've got to figure out how to deal with, but the Summerfield provision, I'm hopeful that what's going to happen is we're going to get a resolution that is a resolution that's dealt with by the town of Summerfield and the developer, and we won't have to take any action.
Does that still require 2 votes or just 1 in the House?
It'll take 2 votes, as I understand it, because of the de-annexation part of it. It takes 2 votes in both houses.
Thank you.
Thanks, y'all. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Go ahead, I'm sorry, I had to cut you off.